Get out of the car. Hands up. Don't reach for anything.
I'm in my own driveway. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
Don't get smart. We got a suspicious vehicle, license and registration. Now.
My wallet's in my inside jacket pocket. Tell me what you're detaining me for.
For failure to comply.
Get out of the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. The voice cut through the night, sharp and impatient, echoing off parked cars and brick walls. The man froze for half a second, then slowly raised both hands, palms open, keys still dangling from his right fingers. Officer. I am just pulling into my own driveway. There is no reason for this. The cruiser lights wash the street in alternating red and blue. A humid summer night. Cicadas buzzing. The smell of wet asphalt still hanging in the air from a brief rain 10 minutes earlier. Step back from the car. Now. The officer's hand hovered near his holster. His partner stood slightly behind flashlight beam fixed on the man's chest, never leaving it. The man took one slow step back. His movements were deliberate, measured the kind used by someone who understood how quickly situations like this could spiral. He wore a dark suit jacket loosened at the collar, no tie, the uniform of someone who had been working late too late. His voice stayed calm. Am I being detained or am I free to go? That question seemed to change everything. Sir, don't get smart with me. We got a call about a suspicious vehicle circling the block. Suspicious. The word landed heavy in the air. I circled once because I missed the turn. I live here. He nodded toward the townhouse behind him. Lights on. Porch lamp glowing. A place that clearly belonged to someone. License and registration. The flashlight moved closer now, invasive, blinding. I will comply, but I need you to understand this. Stop makes no sense. He reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Too slowly for the officer's liking. Hey, hands up, do not reach. The tension snapped tighter. Somewhere down the block a door cracked open. A curtain shifted. I am telling you what I am doing. My wallet is in my inside pocket. The man's jaw tightened. Not in anger, but restraint. Years of discipline showed in the way he breathed through his nose, steady, controlled. Sir, step away from the car and turn around. Metal scraped as the officer pulled the handcuffs free. For what reason, the man finally looked directly at the officer. Not defiant, curious, almost disappointed, for failure to comply. That was the moment the situation tipped from misunderstanding into something darker. Failure to comply with what exactly? The man's tone remained level, but the night felt suddenly smaller, closer. Phones were coming out now. Silent witnesses forming in doorways and behind windshields. Turn around, now. The cuffs clicked open, cold and final. As the officer closed the distance, neither of them yet knew the truth that was about to surface. That the man being detained under flashing lights was not just another resident questioned in the dark. He was one of the highest-ranking law enforcement officials in the country, and every second of this encounter was about to matter. To understand how this night reached this point, you have to step away from the flashing lights and go backward in time. Long before the cruiser rolled to a stop, long before the word suspicious entered the air, there was a boy growing up in a narrow row house in Baltimore learning early that the law could either protect you or crush you, depending on who you were and how you looked. Malcolm Reeves was raised by a mother who worked double shifts as a hospital billing clerk and a father who believed silence was safer than confrontation. Their rules were simple. Keep your head down, speak clearly. Never give anyone a reason to misunderstand you. Those rules followed Malcolm into adulthood. They shaped how he walked, how he spoke, how he learned to stay calm when everything around him suggested panic. He excelled in school not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Scholarships carried him through college, then law school, where he learned to dissect statutes the same way others dissected emotions. He clerked, he prosecuted. He worked cases no one wanted. Drug conspiracies, public corruption, civil rights violations buried under paperwork and apathy. He built a reputation quietly, ruthless with facts, impeccable with procedure, impossible to rattle. Years later, that discipline placed him inside the Department of Justice. From trial attorney to division chief, then upward again. Long nights, security briefings, decisions that ended careers and sometimes saved lives. When he was appointed Deputy U.S. Attorney General, the headlines focused on history, optics, representation. Malcolm focused on responsibility. The weight of the job sat heavy on him every morning when he clipped his badge inside his jacket and stepped into a world where every decision echoed far beyond his office. He did not travel with an entourage at home. He drove himself. He lived in a quiet neighborhood because he wanted normalcy, or at least the illusion of it. On this night, he was returning from a strategy session that had run long, his mind still replaying legal arguments as his car rolled onto his street. Across town, the officer who would stop him was ending his shift frustrated. Officer Daniel Crowley had been on the force 11 years. Long enough to feel overlooked. Long enough to feel the department owed him more than it had given. His file showed commendations for initiative and productivity. It also showed complaints. Stops that went nowhere. Searches that produced nothing. Citizens who felt humiliated but lacked proof. Each complaint had been reviewed. Each time Crowley had been cleared or quietly retrained. No suspension, no demotion, just notes in a system that valued numbers over nuance. He learned an unspoken lesson. Push hard and you will be protected as long as nothing explodes. Crowley believed he was good at reading people. Trusted his instincts. Especially at night. Especially in neighborhoods he considered sensitive. When the call came in about a vehicle circling, he filled in the gaps himself. Black male, late hour, expensive car. The narrative assembled effortlessly in his mind, polished by years of unchecked assumptions. By the time he saw Malcolm step out of the car, Crowley had already decided who he was dealing with. Not a federal official, not a neighbor. Just another man who needed to be questioned, controlled, put back in his place. 2 lives. 2 histories. One shaped by restraint and law. The other shaped by authority without consequence. They were always going to collide. It was only a matter of when. The night did not stay quiet for long. Once the first set of cuffs failed to come out, once voices rose just enough to break the stillness, attention followed. It always did. Porch lights clicked on one by one. A garage door paused halfway open. Someone across the street lowered a phone from their ear and lifted it again, this time pointing it outward. Officer Crowley stepped closer, closing the space deliberately. His flashlight angled upward now, flooding Malcolm's face with harsh white light. Every line, every breath, every blink. "I asked for your license." Malcolm nodded once, slowly. "I am going to provide it. My wallet is inside my jacket." He spoke clearly, the way people do when they want every word preserved. Crowley did not move back. He did not lower the light. "You're taking too long." Suspicion hardened into accusation. "Because you told me not to reach." Malcolm kept his hands visible, shoulders squared, feet planted. He had argued cases more hostile than this. He knew when to press and when to pause. Crowley's partner shifted his weight uneasy now. The body camera light blinked red. "Recording. Sir, do you have any weapons on you?" "No." "Any drugs?" "No." "Any reason you shouldn't be stopped right now?" "Yes. I have done nothing wrong." That answer drew a quiet murmur from somewhere behind them. A woman standing on her porch shook her head. A car slowed, then stopped completely, hazard lights blinking as a passenger leaned out with a phone raised. Crowley's jaw tightened. He felt eyes on him, felt control slipping inch by inch. "I'm asking you one last time. License. Now. You already have my name from the plate. You already know I live here." Malcolm nodded again toward the house. The light still glowed inside, a detail that refused to disappear. Crowley ignored it. "Step over here." For what purpose, Crowley did not answer. He reached out, fingers brushing Malcolm's sleeve. "Do not touch me." The words were calm, but they landed hard. Crowley recoiled as if struck, not physically, emotionally, authority challenged in public. "That's it. You're not cooperating." The partner glanced at him. "This is going sideways," his eyes said. "I am cooperating. I am asserting my rights. There is a difference." Phones were fully up now. No one spoke. The silence itself became pressure. Crowley pulled the cuffs free again, metal catching the streetlight. He did not look at his partner. He did not look at the crowd. He focused on the man in front of him, as if narrowing the world made the choice easier. "Turn around." Malcolm exhaled slowly, not a sigh, a decision. He turned. Behind him, someone whispered, "This is wrong." Another voice answered, "Just watch." Crowley snapped the first cuff on. The sound was unmistakable. Final. Permanent. A mistake with weight. As the second cuff closed, Malcolm looked toward the phones, the faces, the witnesses. "Please keep recording," his voice carried. Calm. Certain. Crowley heard it too. And for the first time that night, doubt flickered across his face. Just for a moment. Then he pushed it away and guided Malcolm toward the cruiser, unaware that the crowd he had tried to control was about to become the most dangerous thing he had ever faced. The back door of the cruiser opened with a hollow thud. Plastic seat. No handles. No way out. Malcolm lowered himself inside without resistance. His wrists rested behind him, steel biting just enough to register, not enough to bruise yet. The door closed. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Red and blue lights continued to strobe across the interior, slicing the dark into fragments. His reflection flickered in the window. Calm face, focused eyes. He forced his breathing into a slow rhythm. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The same discipline he used in court when the stakes were highest. Crowley slid into the driver's seat. He did not look back right away. His partner stood outside for a moment longer, scanning the small crowd, recording phones still raised. Someone asked, "Why are you arresting him?" No answer came. The cruiser pulled away. The neighborhood disappeared behind them. Trees, porches, witnesses, all replaced by asphalt and the low hum of tires. Inside the car, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and old coffee. Malcolm shifted his wrists slightly, testing the cuffs. Tight, but not illegally so. Yet. He stared straight ahead. In his mind, the analysis had already begun. No reasonable suspicion articulated. No probable cause. A detention escalated into arrest based solely on tone and perceived non-compliance. Body camera active, civilian recordings confirmed. A clean timeline forming itself with brutal clarity. In the front seat, Crowley's confidence began to thin. His jaw worked side to side. He adjusted the rearview mirror, catching Malcolm's eyes for a split second. The look he saw there was not fear, not anger. It was something worse. Assessment. Crowley looked away. Neither man spoke. The silence grew heavy, oppressive. Each streetlight they passed marked time. 8 minutes. 9. 10. With every mile, the consequences crept closer. At a red light, Crowley drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. He told himself the man had pushed too far. That the crowd had forced his hand. That supervisors would back him once they heard the tone, saw the body language. He did not yet consider who exactly sat behind him. They pulled into the station lot just before midnight. The cruiser rolled to a stop. The engine idled. Crowley sat there for a moment longer than necessary. Then he opened the door. Malcolm was escorted inside, cuffs still on. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A desk sergeant looked up, eyes briefly scanning the intake form. "What do we have?" Crowley cleared his throat. "Failure to comply. Suspicious activity." The word sounded weaker indoors. Malcolm was guided to a bench. The cuffs were finally removed, replaced by the colder restraint of procedure. His belongings were placed on the counter. Wallet, phone, keys, jacket. When the clerk opened the wallet, his fingers paused. Just for a second. Long enough. He slid out an identification card. Black leather, gold seal. He looked again. Then looked up. "Sir?" Malcolm met his eyes. "Yes." The clerk swallowed. He turned the card so the overhead light hit it fully. There was no mistaking it now. The injustice of the night had reached its breaking point. The machinery that had carried Malcolm here began to grind, hesitate, and finally realize what it had done. The room shifted without anyone saying a word. The clerk's posture changed first. His shoulders straightened. His voice dropped. "Sir, can you confirm your full name for me?" Malcolm spoke it clearly. No hesitation. The clerk glanced back down at the card, then at the screen in front of him. He typed slowly, deliberately, as if each keystroke carried weight. A supervisor standing nearby leaned in, eyes narrowing as he caught sight of the seal on the identification. "Where did you pick him up?" The question was not addressed to Malcolm. Crowley answered too quickly. "Local stop. Suspicious vehicle." The supervisor did not respond. He took the card from the clerk, turned it over in his hands, then looked directly at Malcolm for the first time. "Sir, are you currently employed by the Department of Justice?" "Yes." "In what capacity?" "Deputy United States Attorney General." The air drained from the room. For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of fluorescent lights and the distant crackle of a radio transmission down the hall. The supervisor's face went pale, then rigid. He looked at Crowley. Really looked at him now. "Is that accurate?" Crowley swallowed. He nodded once, barely. The supervisor turned away without another word and walked toward his office. The door closed behind him. Phones came out. A call was placed, then another. The chain of command activated in silence, efficient and merciless. Crowley stood frozen. His mouth opened, then closed again. The story he had built in his head unraveled faster than he could adjust to it. He replayed the stop, the questions, the cuffs, the crowd, the words, "Please keep recording," echoed now with new meaning. Malcolm remained seated, hands folded, expression unchanged. He had waited years in courtrooms for verdicts that carried less consequence than this moment. The supervisor returned with a captain. The captain did not look at Crowley at all. He approached Malcolm directly. "Sir, I want to offer my sincere apology for what has occurred tonight. You will be released immediately." Malcolm met his gaze. Calm, steady. "I will need the incident number, all body camera footage, dash camera footage, and the names and badge numbers of every officer involved. Tonight." The captain nodded. "Of course." Crowley finally spoke. "Sir, I didn't know who you were." Malcolm turned his head slightly. That is precisely the problem. The truth had landed. Heavy, irrevocable. And for everyone in that room, the night was no longer about a misunderstanding. It was about consequences that could not be undone. The story did not stay inside the station. It never does anymore. Before sunrise, the first video surfaced. Shaky at first. A porch angle, red and blue lights bouncing across quiet homes. A calm voice asking clear questions, hands raised, then cuffs. By morning, there were more angles. A dashboard reflection. A phone from behind a hedge. Audio synced. Timestamps aligned. The narrative no longer belonged to the department. By noon, it was everywhere. Local news led with it. National outlets followed within hours. The headline changed slightly each time, but the meaning stayed the same. Senior Justice Department official detained outside his own home. Wrongfully arrested during late-night stop. Caught on video. Comment sections ignited. Millions of views. Hundreds of thousands of reactions. People paused the footage frame by frame, dissecting tone, posture, timing. Former officers weighed in. Constitutional lawyers annotated the encounter line by line. Inside the Department of Justice, there was no delay. A civil rights team reviewed the footage the same day. The analysis was brutal and efficient. No reasonable suspicion. No lawful basis for arrest. Retaliation for verbal assertion of rights. Clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. Malcolm did not give interviews. He did not need to. His attorneys filed the complaint 48 hours later. Federal court. Detailed, clinical, every second documented, every command quoted, every camera referenced. The department launched an internal investigation, but it was already behind. Body camera footage confirmed what the public had seen. Dash camera audio filled the gaps. The arrest report contradicted the video in 3 critical places. Crowley was placed on administrative leave by the end of the week. His record was pulled in full. Prior complaints re-examined. Patterns no longer ignored. Stops after dark. Escalations without cause. Discretion exercised in one direction. Supervisors were called in, emails subpoenaed, training records reviewed. The system that had absorbed earlier warnings now faced exposure. 2 weeks later, the findings were released. Termination for cause. Loss of badge. Loss of pension eligibility. Pending review. The union declined to fight it. The footage was indefensible. The city settled before trial. The amount was significant, but the number mattered less than the conditions. Mandatory policy changes. Independent oversight. Data review on all discretionary stops. Federal monitoring. Malcolm signed the agreement quietly. He returned to work the next Monday. No victory speech, no public celebration, just another meeting, another file, another decision with consequences. Justice had moved. Slowly. Publicly. And this time it did not look away. What happened that night was not complicated. It only felt complicated because authority was involved. Legally, the violation was clear from the first command. Under the Fourth Amendment, police may stop a person only when they can articulate specific and reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. Circling a block once. Parking in front of your own home. Exiting your vehicle calmly. None of these meet that standard. The moment the officer escalated from questioning to detention without articulable facts, the stop became unlawful. When handcuffs were applied as punishment for verbal resistance rather than safety, the violation deepened. Asserting rights is not obstruction. Tone is not probable cause. Discomfort is not crime. This case also exposes a psychological truth that many people underestimate. Bias rarely announces itself. It disguises itself as instinct, as gut feeling, as experience. When unchecked, that instinct becomes justification, and when paired with authority, it becomes action. The officer did not arrest a title. He arrested a man. The fact that the man happened to hold one of the highest legal offices in the country is irrelevant to the legality of the stop. That is the point. Rights do not depend on rank. They are either universal or meaningless. So what should you do if you or someone you love is in this situation? First, stay calm. Control your movements. Speak clearly. Ask one question. Am I being detained or am I free to go? Do not argue on the street. Document everything. Names, badge numbers, time, location. If others are present, ask them to keep recording. Evidence matters. Second, comply physically, even when you disagree legally. Courts exist, so streets do not have to become battlegrounds. Survival comes before vindication. Third, seek legal counsel immediately. Do not rely on internal complaints alone. External accountability is often the only accountability. This story resonates not because the man was powerful, but because he was ordinary in that moment. Tired. Returning home. Expecting peace. If it can happen to him, it can happen to anyone. The final lesson is simple and uncomfortable. Justice does not fail loudly. It fails quietly, one assumption at a time. And it only corrects itself when light is forced into places that prefer darkness. What would you have done differently that night? And what should change so the next person never has to ask that question?